There is a line of black dots crawling up your kitchen wall right now, and you already know it because you have been watching it for 3 days and pretending you have not. They come out from behind the baseboard in the gray hour before sunrise. They cross the counter where your children eat their breakfast. They climb into the sugar bowl and walk out slow and fat, and by supper there are more of them than there were at dawn. You have seen this before. I do not need to tell you what it looks like. I only need to tell you what it costs. I am Levi, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I have kept a farm and a family here the better part of my life, and I have learned that most of what troubles a house was already solved once by someone poorer and wiser than the man selling you the solution today. The exterminator comes in a clean truck with a tank strapped to his back. He walks your baseboards with a wand, and when he is finished, he hands you a bill for more than you meant to spend on a Tuesday. $280 is not an unusual number for one visit, and he will tell you kindly that he needs to come back in 90 days. Because what he sprayed only kills the ants standing on it when he sprayed. Inside that tank is a powder, and the same powder, near enough, sits on a shelf in your own supermarket this evening, in a box the color of a faded barn door for the price of a cup of coffee. He did not invent it, he only put a hose on it and a fee on top of the hose. An ant on your counter is not your problem. Your problem is under the ground, 40 feet from your porch, where a queen is laying eggs faster than any wand will ever reach her. Kill the ants you can see, and you have handed the colony a small inconvenience. The queen does not grieve them. She has thousands more. My grandfather kept a coffee can on the shelf above his workbench, the label gone soft and gray with age, and in 60 years, I never once saw an ant cross that barn floor. He did not own a wand. He did not own a truck. He owned a coffee can, a spoon, and patience enough to let a thing work slow instead of watching it fail fast. There is a box sitting in the laundry aisle of your own store this evening, quiet on the shelf between the bleach and the fabric softener, that most folks walk past 1,000 times in their life and never once think to pick up. It costs about what you would leave for a tip. Hi, viewers. Before I go further, I want to ask you something plain. Have you ever paid a pest control man more than $100 for a single visit to your home, yes or no? Tell me in the comments below. I would like to know how many of us this has happened to. That box holds, near as I can tell, the very same medicine my grandfather kept in his coffee can, and the very same medicine sitting inside the exterminator's tank. I am going to tell you its name before we are much further along, and how my grandfather mixed it, so the ants carry it home to their sisters instead of dying on your windowsill where it does you no good at all. But first, you must understand why the spray in that man's tank is the wrong shape of a lie. A spray that only kills what it touches was never going to solve a problem that lives 40 feet underground, out of reach of any wand a man can carry on his back. The powder is called borax. If you want the word a chemist would use, it is sodium tetraborate. But you do not need the chemist's word to use it, only mine. Borax is not new, and it is not some secret my family has kept hidden in a cellar. It comes out of dry lake beds in the California desert, and men were hauling it out by mule team back in the 1880s. 20 mules pulling a wagon load of white ore across ground too hot and too dry for much else to live on. Your own grandmother likely had a box of it under her sink, in her wash water, long before you were born. The same box, near enough, still sits in the laundry aisle today, next to the bleach, wearing close to the same plain label it wore 60 years ago. And every ant bait on the hardware shelf, the $15 gel, the $9 spray, the plastic stakes you push into the dirt for $12 a package, carries some form of this same powder inside it. Nobody discovered something new. They only put a nicer box around something old. I owe you honest words here, because I do not want you disappointed come Tuesday. This is not a powder that kills on contact, and it will not clear your kitchen in one afternoon. If that is what you are hunting for, the man with the tank on his back will happily sell it to you, at whatever price he chooses. What I am about to show you works slower and deeper and cost you almost nothing at all. Let me tell you about my grandfather's coffee can. He kept it on the shelf above the workbench in the barn, the label long since gone soft with age, and I cannot recall a season when the ants ever got the better of him. He never sprayed a single wall. He never called a single man in a truck. On a Sunday afternoon, he would take that can down, spoon some of the powder into a chipped saucer, and stir in a spoonful of grape jelly until it turned the color of window glass. Then he would set the saucer on the barn windowsill, where the ants had been marching all week, and go back to his supper. By Wednesday, the trail on that windowsill had thinned. By the following Sunday, it was gone. And so, near as we could tell, was the nest under the porch step that had been troubling the hens. He never sprayed anything. He fed the ants their own dinner and let them carry it home. Here is why that matters, and here is the only chemistry I will ask you to keep in your head. Borax will not kill an ant the moment she touches it. She has to eat it. Once she does, it works on her inside slowly, over days rather than minutes, wearing down the way her body breaks food apart. Slow is not a flaw in this method. Slow is the entire method. A slow-dying ant does not die on your windowsill, where it would do you no good at all. A slow-dying ant walks home. She shares her supper with her sisters, mouth to mouth, the way ants do. The same meal passed down the line until it reaches the queen herself, in a chamber no spray can and no wand was ever built to reach. You will not see her die. You will only know by the quiet that follows. But there is a number you must get right before any of this works the way it did for my grandfather. A ratio, mixed wrong more often than it is mixed right. I am not going to make you wait for it. We will mix it together, right now. 3 parts sugar, 1 part borax. That is the whole of the ratio, and it is the number my grandfather kept in his head without ever once writing it down. Mix it too strong, and the worker ant dies before she ever leaves your kitchen, alone on your windowsill, and you have gained nothing. Mix it too weak, and she will walk right past it, because an ant is fussier about her sugar than most people give her credit for. 3 to 1. Say it once, and you will not forget it. Here is how you make it, and it will take you less time than the argument you are about to have with yourself over whether it is really this simple. Take a small jar, a mason jar, a jam jar, whatever sits clean in your cupboard. Spoon in 3 parts white sugar to 1 part borax. If you would rather use honey, as my wife Esther prefers, a good squeeze in place of the sugar works just as well, and she tells me the ants come to it faster. Boil half a cup of water on the stove. Mind your hands here, because boiling water does not care whose kitchen it is standing in, and pour it over the sugar and the borax in your jar. Watch what happens next, because it is worth the watching. The borax will not settle at the bottom the way flour would. It vanishes. Stir it once, twice, and the water clears like tea steeping backward until you cannot tell there was ever powder in that jar at all. Let it rest. 10 minutes, no more. It should be warm to the wrist, the way you would test milk for a baby. Not hot enough to scald a finger, and never hot enough for a curious tongue to find out the hard way. While it cools, let me tell you the one mistake that ruins this for most people, and it has nothing to do with the ratio. They put the bait on the nest. Do not put the bait on the nest. An ant does not eat where she sleeps, any more than you would take your supper into your own bed. She eats where she walks, on the trail, along the baseboard, at the crack in the foundation where she has been coming and going all week. Put the bait there, 6 inches off from the wall, and let her find it on her own errand. Now, where to set it? You do not need the plastic bait stations from the store, 6 to a package for $9, when you already own better sitting in a drawer. An old bottle cap will do. A walnut shell split in half from last autumn's cracking does better, because it holds the mixture like a small cup. A flat stone with a dimple worn into it by weather does the same. Even a cotton ball soaked through and dropped onto a jar lid will hold enough for a week of visiting. Set one where the trail meets the wall inside. Set one outside, where she is leaving the foundation. If the sugar ants have found your garden hose at dusk, set one there as well. And if they have made a home of your barbecue grate, as they are fond of doing in the warm months, set one on the underside of the lid, well away from where you will next be cooking. A word of caution here, plain and simple, because I would rather tell you once than have you learn it the hard way. This is not a powder for the dog's water bowl, or the cat's favorite windowsill. Keep it where the children do not reach and the animals do not wander, the same as you would keep a bottle of bleach. Wash your hands after mixing it, and never leave the saucer sitting where supper is served. Set your bait down and go back to your evening. You have already done the hard part, and the hard part only cost you 10 minutes, but do not expect quiet by morning. In truth, and this is the part that unsettles most folks the first time they try it, the ants are about to get worse before they get better. I want to tell you why, so that when it happens, you do not lose your nerve and wash the whole thing away. Within a day of setting that bait down, you are going to open your kitchen cupboard and believe, for a moment, that you have made things worse. 10 ants will become 40. 40 will become what looks like 100, all marching the same road, thick as a hair ribbon laid across your counter. This is not failure. This is the plan working exactly as it should. The first ant who found your saucer did not keep her discovery to herself. She went home and laid down a scent trail, a kind of perfume only her sisters can read, and told the whole colony, in her own way, that supper was being served. Every ant you now see marching is a forager answering that call. Do not sweep them. Do not spray them. Do not move the saucer because it looks like it has drawn too large a crowd. Let them work. Every single ant walking that trail is carrying a portion of her own undoing back to the nest, to the young, and to the queen. By the third day, the trail should begin to thin. By the end of the week, you should see mostly stragglers, wandering rather than marching in line. And in most kitchens, somewhere in the second week, the wall goes quiet. I want to be honest with you about that timeline, because I have seen it run faster in a small colony settled under a porch step, and I have seen it take the better part of 2 weeks in a colony that had dug in deep behind an old farmhouse wall, with plenty of cracks to hide in. Your house is not my house. Give it a little more patience than you think you should need to. This kind of bait, sugar or honey mixed with borax, is not something my family invented, and I will not pretend otherwise to you. Recipes like it were passed hand to hand in farmhouse kitchens on both sides of the ocean long before the spray can was ever sold at a counter store, back when a housewife solved her own pest trouble with what already sat in her cupboard because there was no one to call and no money to spend on calling them. Which brings me to a question I expect some of you are already turning over. If this is so simple and so cheap, why did nobody teach you this before now? I will give you the honest answer, and it is not a complicated one. There is no money in it for anyone to teach you. A box of borax costs about what you would leave for a tip, and it will see you through a whole season, maybe 2. Nobody makes a living selling a family one $5 box a year. But a company can sell that same family a paper tube of gel every month at $15 a tube for as many years as they keep buying, and there is no sign on the shelf pointing toward the plainer, cheaper box standing 3 feet away. That is not some hidden scheme. That is simply how a shelf gets stocked and how a business stays in business. Add up what a household spends across a single bad year, the tubes, the traps, one visit from the man with the tank, and you're often looking at more than $100, sometimes several hundred, depending on how determined the ants have been. Set against that, a single box of borax, and whatever sugar or honey you already keep in the cupboard. There is a particular kind of quiet that settles into a kitchen once the trail is gone. Not the quiet of a house that was never troubled. That quiet you take for granted. This is the other kind, the quiet you notice, because you remember what the wall sounded like with 100 ants crossing it. And now there is nothing there but the counter and the morning light. That is the whole of the math. You did not need me to work it out for you. You only needed somebody to say it plainly, out loud. Once the trail goes quiet, there is a second task left, and it costs you nothing at all. Only a rag and a little vinegar. Wipe down the places where the ants were marching, the windowsill, the baseboard, the crack at the foundation, with plain white vinegar on a cloth. You are not killing anything at this point. You are erasing a map. Ants find their way by that scent trail I told you about earlier, and a new scout come spring will only follow her nose to your kitchen if the old trail is still written there. Wipe it clean, and she finds nothing to follow. Here, then, is exactly what I want you to do this weekend, plainly, so you can carry it in your head without writing a word of it down. The first thing, find a box of borax in the laundry aisle of your own store. It will run you somewhere around $5 to $6, and one box will carry you through the whole season. The second thing, measure 3 parts white sugar or a good squeeze of honey to 1 part borax, and boil half a cup of water to dissolve it through. The third thing, let it cool to a wrist-warm temperature. Then set it out in bottle caps, walnut shells, or a jar lid along the trail, never on the nest itself, and always well away from where children or animals might reach it. The fourth thing, leave it alone. Give it a week, perhaps 2, before you judge whether it has done its work. The fifth thing, once it has, wipe the old trails down with vinegar, so the same story does not write itself again come the first warm week of spring. 5 things. Under $6, most places. 1 Sunday afternoon, and a little patience in the days that follow. I think of my grandfather sometimes, standing at that barn windowsill with his chipped saucer, in no particular hurry, because he already knew the ants would do the carrying for him. There was a kind of contentment in that, not the rushed satisfaction of a spray can emptied in a minute, but the slower kind, the kind that comes from watching a thing work the way it was always going to work, given time. The ant is not your enemy, not truly. She is a small, hungry thing doing the only work she has ever known how to do. But your kitchen is not her kitchen, and there is no reason you should need a stranger in a truck to come and explain that to her twice a year, at whatever price he decides to charge you for the lesson. Tell me in the comments below where you live and what your own ant situation looks like this summer, whether it is the kitchen counter, the garden bed, or the barbecue grate they have taken a liking to. I read every single one,